Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is new college football Hall of Famer Danny Woodhead. Danny, how are you this morning?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Good, man. Good. How does that feel to hear Ravi calling you a college football Hall of Famer?
Oh man, I mean, it's kind of crazy. Like a lot, like everything, that I've been able to be a part of has been an honor. I think this one hit a little differently than maybe any of the other past things because it's kind of the highest achievement. So I mean, it's pretty cool, but I'm hoping every person that played with me or that blocked for me or whatever, they feel that they have a little they feel that they have a little piece of me getting in, because without a doubt they do, and the coaching staff, because I couldn't have done it on my own, clearly.
Danny, I'm curious about, I want to go all the way back to high school, which I actually saw you play in high school because I went to Millard North, and North Platte and Millard North had some good battles back when you were out at North Platte High. But what was it like when okay, you have this confidence in your abilities and you have this confidence in what you're able to do, but to go through that kind of recruiting process and just not get much traction in terms of, either a Nebraska offer or even just general Division I interest? Like, how did that kind of shape who you ended up being, both at Chadron State and then moving on to the NFL as well?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy. I mean, I remember in '94 when, or was it '93? I can't remember. '93, '94 when we lost to Florida State in the Orange Bowl, and I cry.
Yeah.
I mean, I was one of those kids that, like, playing for Nebraska was like what I wanted to do, and so yeah, I mean that was a tough deal, and the tough thing about then opposed to now is it's hard to get recruited outside of Nebraska back then if you're not offered by the only state Division I school, because back then recruiting was just a little bit different. I mean, I guess I could have, like, were there things I could have taken advantage of? Yeah. Like I could have went to my junior year, I got invited to go to the Army All-American Combine. But I didn't feel like that'd be a good teammate of me as a basketball player, because I would have missed a game. I felt like, as one of the leaders of that team, and not even a leader, but just being a good teammate, it was my job. If I signed up to play basketball, I should play basketball. And that's just kind of how I was raised. So, I mean, were there some things I maybe could have done differently? Sure. But it was tough because, you feel like you do good enough things. You feel like, I think my junior and senior year, before those years, I went to Nebraska's camp, and I feel like I should have. I feel like I should have had the opportunity. I really do. But that's okay. And because the thing is, the Lord had so many different plans for me. Those plans were way better. They were way, way better. Are there times I wish I could have walked out or ran out on at Memorial Stadium? Yeah, for sure. That's not how it worked out. I was able to play at Chadron State and have great teammates and coaches and have fans that they were standing room only, and it was a different environment, but it was an amazing environment. And then, like, that was the path that God had for me, and the path that was perfect. I mean, because I was able to play 10 years. If someone would have said, "Hey, Danny, you could have played at Nebraska and you could have won a national championship and you wouldn't have played in the league," I would have taken my path all day. And I am okay with it. I am not mad at anyone. I cheer for the Huskers. Now, did I during those 4 years? Nah. I mean, did I want them to lose by 60 every game? Yeah, I did. But
they did some.
Beside the point. They did. I'm not.
And they also didn't win a national championships. You don't have to worry about that scenario either.
No, I'm not naming any Texas Tech games or anything. But you know what I say? You feel me on it. I'm still paid attention.
Sure.
But like now, I love Nebraska, and I am not mad at anyone. I live in the state of Nebraska. I love it because these are my people.
Danny, before we move on to kind of the rest of your football career and and what got you into the College Football Hall of Fame. I have to ask, because I don't know that people now maybe remember how good of a high school athlete you were in other sports. I mean, you mentioned basketball. If I remember right, you were averaging 20-plus points per game on the basketball court. Weren't you also really good at soccer? Was that – you played soccer, right? Like you led the state in goals in soccer, I think, as well?
Yeah, so I played freshman, sophomore, senior year. I went out for track as a junior, and I didn't run great. I think I got 5th in the 100, but I did it because people were saying that'd get you a scholarship. Didn't get me a scholarship, so I said, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm doing what I love.
Yeah.
In soccer, so many people say, oh, track's so great for football. Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. Soccer might have been the best thing that could have ever happened to me for football because it's straight agility. And if I'm building a football team in the NFL right now, I'm not getting guys that can just run straight ahead fast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting dudes that can beat man-to-man coverage, and they can make a paycheck doing that. So, like, to me, soccer was one of the best. I mean, basketball was great too, hand-eye, everything. But soccer was incredible just for the agility and just the footwork. It made me such a better football player.
And Danny, and you're also a scratch golfer too, and I know you've done some of that after you retired as well. But outside of football, was there a sport, or maybe even including football, was there a sport that you enjoyed the most? Obviously, football you made your career in, but which one did you like low key kind of love?
It was kind of funny because 7th and 8th grade I didn't play football because I wasn't allowed to because I was homeschooled and they didn't allow me to play in the school. So I became, I don't know if I'd say obsessed. I loved basketball. I thought basketball was going to be my ticket, actually. And things kind of just changed. I mean, I had a great freshman year. I had a great sophomore year. My coach said, hey, this school, it was a Division I school. They want to know if you're even worth recruiting. And I said, they go, because they think you're going to play football. And me at that point, not a dumb kid, but like I was like, nah, I'm playing football. And I could have had options. Like, so it wasn't really dumb of me because it worked out how it was supposed to work out. But I loved basketball. But I would say into my freshman year and sophomore year, I also I always loved football. I was like, gosh, like I'm pretty decent at football too.
Yeah, 10 years in the NFL, I'd say so.
Yeah, not too shabby. Now, Danny, do you think I want to go back to your point that you made on how you didn't skip a basketball game to go on maybe one of the best spots to be recruited. Do you think if you were getting recruited 10 years down the road when social media became king in terms of recruitment videos that staying for your basketball game wouldn't have mattered and you still would have gotten the look that big schools could give you because they saw everything right in front of them?
Yes. I mean, I do, but like it's okay. It's okay that it didn't. Do I think there's other things too? Nowadays, a running back like what I was is kind of what people want.
Yeah.
When I was, it was newer when I was coming out, right? Like, kind of. I mean, there were guys that were my size or smaller at Nebraska, so like that was kind of hard to that one's kind of hard to say. But yes, I think yes, I do. I think, yeah, I think the frustrating thing is not the frustrating thing is, but I mean, the career I had, I thought would get me in, and I thought my numbers would get me in, not my stats numbers, but all my athletic numbers, my 40, my vertical, my agility, like all that stuff. I mean, it's the same thing, same story as like when I went in the NFL, right?
Sure.
And it's okay. Like my story wouldn't be my story without my path. It just wouldn't. And I'm so okay with it. I'm not mad. If anything, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful because my life revolves around my faith and my trust in my Savior, Lord Jesus Christ. And what his plan was for me, like looking back as a almost 39-year-old man, I'm like, that's like a sick idea. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's probably a sick idea because he created me and he knew what would work for me. He knew what I feel like, man, I feel like it's such a privilege that he chose me to walk out the story that he wanted me to walk out. I really do. And I all I feel is like blessed. But last, like when I had the opportunity to go to the U.S. Open qualifier to the final stage,
which is crazy.
I remember being at church and worship, and I was closing my eyes, and I felt like the Lord was like, I was just like having a conversation because it was right after, and I was like, I almost like started tearing up because I was like, I played 4 years at Chadron State, had a really good career, had a great career in high school, had amazing 10-year career in the NFL, and now you're letting me do this too. So like, I am not mad. I am, if anything, I feel blessed that this is the road, even though during the road it sucked sometimes.
Sure.
Like, and it was very frustrating. But like, I'm so just filled with gratitude that like I was allowed to take that path.
Danny, what advice would you have then for the young players out there that aren't coming from the biggest schools and aren't as highly touted coming out of high school, that you can still make a name for yourself wherever you go?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the biggest thing is don't listen to no one. Like, I mean, there's certain things like listen to your coaches on hey, how to footwork. Yeah. But anyone that wants to say something negative, let that go in one ear and out the other, because those people aren't for you. Like they really aren't. They're not. Like, there was a coach that said, yeah, you're too small. Maybe you could be a kick returner or punt returner. Like, if I would have listened to that, my story wouldn't be my story. If I would have listened to the scouts or to maybe a general manager that's after getting released or whatever said, oh, you know, great career. Like, I'm proud of you. Like I hate to say this, but like, I was like they were doing something charity for me being on the team. If I would have listened to that, I wouldn't have played 10 years. So like, don't listen to the negative things that people say about you, because if you do, you're going to start believing them. And if you believe them, you're going to be in a tough spot, because if you don't have any sort of belief in your skills, you don't need to go out and be an arrogant dude. But if you don't have confidence in the things that you do, you're probably not going to make it.
Danny, we're talking with Danny Woodhead, college football Hall of Famer, Nebraska native, 10-year NFL vet. Danny, I want to touch on your college career real quick, and then if you don't mind, I do want to ask you a couple Bill Belichick questions before we get you out of here.
Sure. Yeah.
But the reason we're having you on is because you did get elected to the College Football Hall of Fame. Yep. I mentioned some of your accolades earlier. 2-time Harlan Hill Trophy winner. When you left Chadron State, you were the all-division NCAA rushing leader. Just throughout that experience, you talked a little bit about it and just how great of an experience that was for you at Chadron. Is there a couple of things that stand out the most to you? Like I'm wondering at what point you understood how successful you could be. Like at what point during your either freshman year, however early it was, when you got to Chadron, you're like, oh, I could be really good here.
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of confidence in what I could do. Mm-hmm. Like, so I felt like wherever I was going to go, I was going to be able to play. And so when I got to Chadron, I felt like I was going to be able to play. And I thought, you know, hopefully they're not going to just be like, oh, he's a freshman, he can't play. That was my biggest worry. And my biggest worry, unfortunately, I think at any place would be, and it's not to focus on it, but is to worry about the things you can't control. Mm-hmm. And luckily I didn't do that enough, like too much, because I had confidence in, my abilities. And then I would say, if you talk about my whole college career, I'd say my freshman, sophomore year, I obviously knew I was a good running back, but I didn't know, if the NFL was going to look or whatever. And I think that's when I realized my junior year, it was kind of, some of the numbers that we were able to put up was kind of silly. And,
right.
And it was like more like, I can't remember, but I think I had to have averaged over 200 yards a game. And it was just kind of silly. And I think that's when it was like, oh gosh, like this is a little bit crazy. And I was fortunate to have a great line, a great quarterback, great guys, selfless receivers that would block, almost like, the Nebraska teams of the 90s when receivers were extra linemen. It felt like those guys bought in as much as the linemen. And when you have 11 dudes, kind of 10, because the quarterback has to hand it off, but like blocking, things can work out really, really well. And I was fortunate of great coaches, great teammates, and man, just being at the perfect spot that I was supposed to be at.
Danny, moving into the NFL now, as Ravi alluded to, getting a quick take on Bill Belichick. In our eyes, he's the greatest coach of all time. But how is he great to you? How is he the greatest coach to Danny Woodhead?
The reason he was the greatest coach was because he didn't care who you were. He had no care who you were. Like, you don't have to be 6'1", 230, 6'2", 230, like coaches would try to say. First of all, that's like not like an ideal running back. There's one unicorn in Derrick Henry, okay? And outside of that, that's not really an ideal thing. And he would just put the best players on the field that he had at his team. He didn't care where you went to school. He actually didn't even care what your stats were in college. He wanted to know what you did right then and there. And he was consistent. Like, was it hard to play for Bill? Yeah, of course, because he expected a lot. But he had expectations that were like so clear. And if you violated an expectation, you're not playing or something's happening. Because, and I respected that, because there's a lot of teams that, well, it's this guy. No, Tom got yelled at. Like other places, like, oh, it's a franchise quarterback. You have to be nice to him. It's like, well, why? Like we're trying to win a game, aren't we? We're not trying to like just be a buddy. We're all working towards the same goal. And he just set the expectations so clear, and he played the best players that he had. And I appreciated that, because in the NFL, people don't get it. They're like, oh, no, everyone's trying to win not everyone's trying to win a Super Bowl. I mean, they may say that. There's really like 8 to 10 teams that really are like, we have a chance. And the other ones, it's like, oh, well, I got to save my butt. We got to start this guy. We got to start this guy. And it's like, Bill didn't care. And I appreciated that. And obviously, we don't even have to talk about X's and O's. He's the best at that. Like he's just unbelievable. And he knew offense, he knew defense, and he knew special teams. And what he expected out of you, he also expected out of himself. So like he walked the walk, even if you didn't like him and you thought he was hard, he still walked the walk, and you couldn't be mad at him. Like it's like, okay, I respect that. I maybe do some things a little different, but you're the greatest of all time because of what you do.
Danny, we've got a few minutes left here with you. By the way, you undersold your junior season a little bit. 212 yards a game in that one for a ridiculous 2,700 yards. 2,700 yards is a career, Danny.
Good year.
That's a career. That's a good career.
If that was a good year, what's a great year?
Well, honestly, I mean, I didn't run for a lot in the playoff game. I actually had only like 30 some yards. So Maybe if I would have got another 100 or something, it would have been a great year.
I mean, if you would have gotten like another 240, you'd been at 3,000 rushing yards. But
that is true.
Yeah, you blew it, man.
Not me.
You really messed up your yards per game average with that that
Whatever.
playoff
I knew it was in the twos. I had a pretty good idea.
Just for a real casual 8 yards a carry that year, also.
It's a good thing you only get 2 downs to get a first down in college.
That is true.
You barely needed
it's like the CFL.
You barely needed the one. Danny, one last thing here before we let you go. Got about 2 minutes left. We hear all the time that Belichick is this totally different person behind closed doors than we see in his press conferences where he's like, oh, I'm just focused on Buffalo or whatever. What did you see from him behind the scenes as far as just like a personality is concerned?
Well, I mean, the way he talks is the way he talks. He's not like, I mean, he
doesn't become Bozo the Clown or anything.
Yeah, I mean, he will. He does have humor. He does have a sense of humor. I know people don't think that. It's just we were always scared that we were going to get in trouble for something. So then when he said something funny, we're like, oh, okay, we're not in trouble. And we kind of laugh. And you have to laugh a little bit louder because it's Bill. You're like, okay, make sure you're rolling. But no, he was, I mean, he cares deeply about the organization. He cares deeply about the organization. He's not going to tell anyone in the media anything, which I think is one of the smartest things as a coach. Media gets mad. But if you are a coach, you don't want them to know anything about your team because the other teams that you're playing are listening. Mm-hmm. Just like they do. They listen to the other media, like the other coaches' media stuff, because they want to find out stuff. If you're saying like, oh, we really got to run the ball this week. Well, okay, they're really going to try to run the ball. Why would you say that stuff? I don't. To me, it makes no sense. I don't want my opponents to know anything about me. I don't want them to know anything about any of my players that are injured. So he's just vague. He's like, yeah, he was out today. He was limited. Oh, he was this. He was that. Without getting fined, you have to answer questions. So you can answer questions in the most vague way ever. Eric Mangini taught me one of the, greatest things about talking to the media, which they had like a nice little headbutting when he was at the Jets. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. But Eric said, you don't have to answer a question you don't want to. Answer your own question. Mm-hmm. So if someone puts you in a weird position to talk about another human being, great example is like if someone's, hey, what do you think about this guy holding out? Like, what do you think? Never talk about another man. Never talk about another man's contract. Never talk about another man like teammate or anything. Like when it's business, you don't need to do that. If it's in your business, don't do it. So what do? It's like, I'm just trying to get better. And they're like, huh? and they go, yeah, but what do you think about this? It's like, honestly, I'm not focused on that. I'm trying to get better.
Danny Woodhead, College Football Hall of Famer, all-time great Nebraska high school athlete, and 10-year NFL vet. Danny, thank you so much for joining us. That was terrific. Hopefully we'll get to catch up again soon.
Hey, sounds good, fellas. Have a good one.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate the time.
That was Danny Woodhead, one of your latest College Football Hall of Famers. Coming up next, we've got more for Hurrdat Sports Radio.